I had very high expectations for myself coming out of high school and into college. I've spent literally 25 years going from one industry to the next, wanting to make money. I put it off for a couple decades. It made me realize, well, wait a second, I can help these people now. I don't have to wait to become a millionaire. Everything changed. On Monday, it'll be $400,000 in equity purchase.
The real estate world is changing. Opportunity is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the very best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs, overcoming our fears, transforming ourselves so we can transform our business. This is Investor Creator.
Tom, welcome to Investor Creator.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you on. So guys, Tom, I've known for about a year, maybe a year and 2 or 3 months, and he's had really a meteoric rise in that Denver market. So it's been a lot of fun to see. So just kind of tell us where you're from, how you got started in real estate, and we'll go from there.
Well, I'm originally from Chicago, west suburbs, Oak Park and River Forest. Frank Lloyd Wright built a bunch of homes there, and Ernest Hemingway established my high school newspaper. But I went to school out west and thought I wanted to be a doctor. And so when I got there, I realized that wasn't for me, and really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And so I got involved in both mortgage banking and brokerage right out of college there. But the earthquake 94 took me out of that market real fast. And so that's when I picked up and moved out here to Colorado. And after that, I spent the next couple decades kind of a jack of all trades. I've worked as a computer technician. I've worked in construction. I worked at restaurants and made another go back into the mortgage industry. But out here in Colorado, before the 2008 crash, it was unregulated. And so I really couldn't deal with having to lie to people to get loans, which is what people did out here. And so I've had the dream of being a real estate investor a long time, but I was one of those that thought, oh, you need money to make money. And so I was trying to chase money in other industries for a long time until I finally made the decision. And this was several years ago. My wife and I were working for a textile technology firm in Boulder. And a new CEO came in and cleaned house. And she was part of the second cuts. I was part of the third. And so we found ourselves in Westminster with the house and 2 cars and 2 kids and no jobs. And so I jumped into my car and started doing some Uber and had so much fun with it. I decided to go pro. And so I got a limo license and a Chevy Suburban with the exact intention of finally getting a real estate investment business going. And that's what I did. And the first couple of years were incredibly hard. I made a lot of sacrifices and time to my family and my sleep and my health, and gave up some of the athletics that I really enjoy. But it's been worth it because I had to put in that time and effort, if you will, to reap the rewards in this Denver market. It was a little tough getting started.
So what year was it whenever the layoffs happened and it was like ground zero? Okay, I've got to do something.
That was in 2014.
Okay, so that was in 2014, which was actually great timing in terms of the market because the market was definitely on an upswing in Denver at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But my wife and I, it wasn't really until 2016, though, that I put the money into, getting myself some training and establishing a business and starting to do some marketing in the real estate market. And because it was doing so well here with what I was trying to do, I had no success in the beginning. I was just
Yeah. And I remember one of our first conversations, Tom had said one of his prior coaches had mentioned that you shouldn't get a payoff on a subject to transaction because it would flag the lender and they would call the loan. Or am I remembering that right? Or
correct.
Yeah. And I was just like, man, this guy had no chance.
Well, and so that's part of what I discovered. I'm trying to have the perspective of not having any sour grapes for any of the training and stuff that I go through. But that was one of the things that I disliked about my former coach was just I won't call it dishonesty, but was just, not being wholly truthful and glossing over details. And, that's always been a thing about me is I want full disclosure and I want to be honest and I want to go to bed at night knowing that I've done the right thing. And so that's what I noticed once I started implementing your thinking and strategy and scripts and talking to people is how I can tell people the truth and honestly do business in this town and make good money doing it. And so, but I had to see that other perspective to be able to appreciate what I have now.
Yeah. And I appreciate that very much, man.
Yeah.
It's something that I think that most people can tell when someone's trying to beat them up on something and they're not being 100% honest. And man, there's been so many transactions where we've gone into the house and said, look, the house is beautiful. You don't need to sell it to me. Just list it. You'll get more money. And at that point, they know that we're just like, hey, we don't need your house. Like, just go and do something better for you. Whatever's best for you, we're fine with. And they are just like chase us down to sell the house to us at that point. It's like, no, you're buying the house. Like we've literally had people tell us like, no, you're going to buy this house. And like, well, okay. So I definitely agree with you and understand what you're saying there. It was 2014 when you had to make something happen. 2016, you really began to become committed to the real estate business, but you said you had some trouble then. So like, what did you do in 2016 and why didn't that work?
Well, I was basically going after retail customers, meaning, off the expired list and stuff, people who were trying to get retail price for their house. And things have just been crazy here in Denver with how prices have gone up. With mortgage rates being so low, prices have gone up to match what people can afford. And so, looking at homes down in Denver where it's realistically priced at $500,000 compared to comps and people are asking for $600,000 and they're getting it.
Yeah.
You get a couple from California comes in and they're able to only pay $600,000 for a house that would cost them 1.2 in California with half the square footage. It's a no-brainer. And so that's really been the dynamic. I mean, the numbers in Denver are you need to be making a minimum of $90,000 a year to qualify for a house in this town, and average wage is $60,000.
Yeah,
and so it's just such a disparity. With my car business, I have all sorts of professionals that I get to see and work with from every corporation you can name here on the Front Range, and even those doing very well cannot sell their house and move. They'd have to move out of the market to upgrade. There is no downsizing. You're downsizing into the same priced house. And so that was the hard part with how I was trying to get in with no money down and just take over payments subject to. I came close to a couple deals, but then, for instance, the one contract I had on hand, the couple the next day found the renter that they were looking for before they found me. And so I could have held them to task to perform on the contract, but again, that's not me. That's not how I'm going to try to do business. And so I came close with getting a retail subject to deal, but I just wasn't getting anywhere. And again, I think a lot of it had to do with how I didn't feel comfortable with what I was saying to people and the scripts I was using to try to get those deals. I basically would go to people's homes and after an hour an appointment, tell them what I really wanted to do. And I'd have people look at me like, what?
Yeah.
You want me
Yeah.
to do what?
Yeah.
And so that was no fun. And so I really had to change my posture. And what really did it was I had author of a book called The Diamond Cutter take a ride for me from the airport to the Four Seasons here in Denver, because he was here speaking to the YPO, which is the Young Professionals Organization.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be under 40 and running a company worth $1 million to be invited to this group. And this gentleman is the first American ever to be given the title of Master of Buddhism. And he wrote a book called The Diamond Cutter, which is a story about how he helped create a $100 million a year company. And so after reading this book, I decided to change my whole strategy of people that I was trying to work with. I decided to go after the foreclosures and try to help these people losing their homes.
Yeah, and that's amazing. So let's kind of fast forward from that time to about a year ago. So about a year ago, things really began to hit for you. So what were you doing? And just kind of bring us from a year ago to date. And I think we'll end up just going through the transaction. So just kind of tell us what you were doing and we'll go through the deals.
Well, that's exactly what I did. Is I started mailing to the foreclosure lists the beginning of 2008. And by that spring, I started to get leads and deals coming my way. And my first one was in Denver. Older woman who just couldn't afford it anymore. And the special things I did with her was to help her find a rental place to get her into, because she couldn't afford the house. It was basically a hoard situation in many ways. We went through 9 dumpsters to clean out 700 square foot house, 9 dumpsters.
Wow. I don't even know how
basement
that's
was
possible.
full, the garage was full. And so that was our first one that we bought subject to, and again helped her get into another place. And we fixed it and got it sold. It didn't really have anything wrong with it. It was just all, it needed to be beautified.
Yeah. Okay. So, and just general numbers, do you know roughly what your profit was on that transaction?
Net was about 75,000.
About 75,000. And I mean, that's a pretty darn good first deal.
It was.
Okay.
It was. I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah. All right. So at that point, you have 75K. Did you change anything in terms of how you were running your business and use that as seed money, or what? You already had another couple of transactions going at that point, right?
Yes, and that was the thing, though. Of that 75, I actually used that to, money came from that to fund the other deal. I've been doing a little of stealing from Peter to pay Paul as I've been getting my hands on these deals. I shouldn't really say that. It's more, looking at it from an investor standpoint. I've had to use investor money to fund these deals when, not having the money myself. And so, for myself, I think I have a bit of an old school Chicago mindset of that, you need the money in the bank in order to be able to use it. And so going out using money you don't have is a no-no and things like that. And so, there's certain things about my own personality I've had to get over myself in order to work with this business and allow it to happen. It, for me, it helps to look at all of this as just a giant game of Monopoly.
And I do the same thing, man. And that just makes it so much fun because, anytime. Now, to alleviate your stress there, I mean, if you can put a lender in at 60 or 65% of as-is value, I mean, they're in a very safe position. So I put lenders in second position, not all the time, but fairly often, and it's taken me a while for lenders to be comfortable in second position, but they're 100% comfortable in second position now. And I have no moral issue in putting them there. So that makes a lot of sense. So 75K on your first transaction. Let's talk about your second one. So you had your second and your third by the time the first one was closing out, or was it just one more?
No, just one more. We got our second one then, which is one that an older woman who I wanted to let stay in the house. Her health was very poor, and it wasn't a cash flowing deal for me, but it was such a large equity purchase, about $200,000, depending on how you look at it, with ARV, after repair value of the house. We'll see what the numbers turn out on this one, but her health was so poor that unfortunately she was removed and put into care, and so our long-term plan actually became very short-term here, and that's actually a bit of a focus that I've been looking at with this. And for whatever reason, maybe it's because of my desire to work with them, but the people that are coming to me that are these older ones that want to stay in their home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to do it. The equity's there, the payments are there, but it creates a non-cash flowing position for me. And so it's not ideal for a newbie like myself that, I know I need to get a bit of a war chest accumulated to be able to fund my deals and do these things. But it can be done. And so it's, going back 25 years ago when I was working in mortgages and banking, that was a dream I had, was that I was going to help these old people who, at that point, I was thinking of homes that were free and clear and people that were losing them due to tax liens.
Yeah.
And how I'd love to go and buy these tax liens and keep these old people in their homes. But I thought, I had to have a home free and clear because how could I afford a debt service and all that kind of stuff. And so now with what I'm working with it, I'm seeing that I can buy some of these homes and keep these people in them indefinitely. And so that's what I'm doing right off the bat. And so I just bought a house last month in Aurora. My purchase price was just under $90,000, and that one can be valued in the neighborhood around $325, $350.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how many transactions have you done in roughly the past year? And what do you think your equity position is?
Well, right now I'm set to close on my fourth next week, and my equity spread, give or take, for this year will be about $400,000. Last year, equity spread purchase was about $350 or so.
Mm-hmm.
It, the equity spread in these properties, I always look at it as that's taking the property to market retail.
Right.
And that means if the kitchen and the bathroom are less than 5 years old, then it needs to be updated. And so everything's expensive here in Denver. And so that means at least 30 to 50 to 70 grand to beautify a house. With this, I have a fifth one on my plate. I haven't signed them yet, but if I get them, there's actually about 300,000 in this one. I'm looking at it in Aurora. So that would put me at about 700 for the year in equity purchase.
So there's a potential to in your first year and a half to do right at $1 million in equity position.
Yes.
And did you feel like that was something that was achievable before your first transaction to do that much that fast? Or has this been kind of just a whirlwind to where it's just
I've seen it in the market. I see the spreads. I look at these houses and what they're worth and what people are into them for, and it's truly mind-boggling here in Denver. I read the Denver Post every day and stay abreast of what they talk about, and give you an idea of numbers. In the 2010, when foreclosures hit their peak, we had 46,000 foreclosures in the greater area. My list last year that I mailed to was only 2,500.
Wow.
And so that's only about 50 a week that I was mailing to. And so my list could go up to 900, 1,000. We have another downturn here. And so Denver, we are, if you take Seattle out of the picture, which their market is only better than us because of the money from Asia buying the real estate over there. But our economy is the number one in the country. We have the highest percentage of homeowners with the highest percentage of equity spread of any city in the country. And so we're booming on all cylinders here. It also kind of stinks though, again, because people are the working class in this town are completely outpriced out of this market.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen the same thing in Nashville, where it's just mostly my hub, but we're seeing it in markets across the country where pricing is certainly outpacing wage growth. And with that, there's the squeeze. And, I think there's actually a book called The Middle Class Squeeze, which kind of outlined that, which was actually a pretty darn good book. And I'm not much on most business books, but it's pretty good. So I recommend that. So You've done super well. I mean, what do you think is next for you? Is it to kind of stabilize the business and continue on the track that you're going, or are you trying to increase it over time?
I'm trying to increase it. I changed, really the only change I did to my mailing right now was increasing the amount of letters I'm getting out to these people. I'm mailing to them several times rather than once.
Mm-hmm.
And right away, I think that's gotten me these two new deals that are, the fourth and the fifth one here is coming from my additional mailing. And yeah, the biggest thing that I'm going through with right now is transitioning myself from the daily work of running my car business, which I'm basically on call all the time for people. And so my schedule is very erratic. I'll wake up in a day with no business booked, and by the end of it, I've had several clients that just come out of the blue. And so that's been my biggest challenge is scheduling just my time to be able to put in. And I'm literally like a lab rat. The alarm goes off and I jump and run to go get the business. And so I think I'm being a bit more conservative with myself than I need to be in terms of getting away from the car business and putting more into the real estate because of the fact that I haven't really developed the cash flow that I want yet, as opposed to, these equity purchases are fine, but it's all just in the homes on paper.
Right.
And so I am not going and leveraging this debt, cashing money out. I'm trying to be super conservative with what I'm doing because I see another 2008 right around the corner. Everybody's talking about it. My more astute corporate clients I have see it coming and with what's happening. But that being said, I know Denver's going to skip like a stone off a pond off of this recession like we did and come right out of it.
Yeah.
And so that is really what I'm focusing on is trying to work with people or find people that aren't so desperate and in such trouble and are a little easier to help but need help selling their home. I see the subject too. We're about to come into our own here in Denver, because right now all a person has to do is take their house to a realtor who knows what they're doing, and they should and can get it sold.
Right.
If you have it priced right. There are buyers out here for nice homes that are ready to sell, and so that's where you see people not being able to sell here in Denver retail is they're asking way too much. They're being too greedy. Or, you walk in and you see their 1980s kitchen cabinets that, yes, they look nice. The house is clean. It's livable, move-in ready, but not for a millennial buyer that is out looking at all the brand new construction that's out here. It's that's what I've heard and seen is that our buyers who are really the millennials, they don't want to fix anything and they don't want to hire anybody to fix anything. And so
Right.
you really need a property that is fixed, everything's working and ready to go.
Well, that first rehab you did was beautiful. When you sent me the pictures, I was like, man, you never really know what you're going to get with somebody's first rehab, but it was just to the nine, just a beautiful job.
Well, I have to chalk that up to the fact that I worked with a really good construction firm in Boulder years ago. And he has now evolved to a new design builder. He doesn't even do the rehabs. And so I got to see what it takes to fix a house right.
Yeah.
And how Murphy's Law is everywhere. What can go And so, but that's the attitude that I'm taking for everything that I'm doing here is that in order to make money in real estate, you have to put value into the equation somewhere, somehow. And so that's what I see the opportunity here in Denver is that there's 10, 20, 30 years of deferred maintenance in so many of these properties. And these people are in a house that's worth $400,000 and they only owe $200,000, but they haven't done anything for the last 20 years. And so they can't get $400,000 for that property. It's worth only $350,000 and they just can't see it. These days people go on their phone or on their computer and they look at Zillow and they go, oh, that's what my house is worth.
Right.
$400,000. And so there's a big disconnect, in my opinion, between reality of, how market forces actually work and what people expect. And it is what it is. This is what we have to work with. Right now, we've already started to see an exodus starting to happen in Denver, where people are leaving that have come here to start working because they can't buy a house.
Yep.
Couples don't want to start a family in an apartment, and the builders here, all they are building. I shouldn't say all they're building. They're building homes, but to give you an idea, I think this was a figure for 2017 that I'm quoting here, but it was they had over 100,000 people come to the Denver metro area with only 25,000 housing starts.
Yeah.
And so all they're building are the high-end apartments because that's the only margin that these builders can make. And there's only so many people that can afford a luxury apartment.
Right. Yeah. And so you will continue to see that exodus at least until wages increase or we see a balancing out in real estate pricing, which I think will happen. To talk about the '08 scenario, do I think we're due for a correction? Certainly. I don't see anything as catastrophic as 2008, but could certainly be wrong. And I'm not sure that it wouldn't help all of our businesses that are in the owner finance game, or at least know how to do it, to have an '08 scenario. So if it happens, it's certainly not going to be a bad day for us. It's just, a slight tweak in what we're doing. So let's kind of switch gears and talk about mindset, because I think it's so important. And I think it's something that so few people are self-aware enough to realize that it's something that is that important. You know what I mean? So
yes,
just talk about mindset. And do you see that it's something that you work on yourself, or are you just generally this positive and have this much belief in yourself?
Oh, it's definitely been a work in progress for me. That for me, I have identified as being my number one obstacle was getting over my old beliefs and conceptions of what I can and cannot do. I had very high expectations for myself coming out of high school and into college. From the age of, I don't know when, I was convinced, I'm going to be a surgeon. I was going to be a brain surgeon. That's what I thought I was going to school to go to do. And since I didn't go on that path, I've had some jobs that people would ask me up, what are you doing this for? When I would tell them where I went to school. My alma mater is UCLA. And, whenever I tell people that, they're always struck by it. It was a great school, one of the best research schools in the world, not just the country. And so that's what I have found myself having to go through was I didn't go out and strike it like I thought I was going to when I was young. Mm-hmm. And because I had that those failures, I was looking as myself as one. And it's taken me going through different reading. I love all the old classics, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and
definitely
a lot of Brian Tracy and Steve Harvecker and these other, Robert Kiyosaki is a favorite of mine. I'm basically reading his whole library of different authors who write about the subject of business and personal finance. And what I have found is that there's just so many old school ideas that hold people back these days. They're obsolete. Go to school, get good grades, get a good job, work for 40 years and retire. And, that paradigm doesn't work these days anymore.
Not at all.
Most people need and go through 5 different complete careers in their lifetimes now. And so I had to get over, that was a beautiful thing about going out and starting this limo business. Again, I've been driving around suits and corporate execs for Denver here for 3 years. And the first year, I envied them quite a bit. After that, not at all. I am so happy the path that I'm on of creating my own path and forging my own career because those guys work like slaves. I've had one after another tell me, they're traveling to this city and to that city, but here I picked them up after they've been in meetings for 8 hours a day and they're on their phone the entire way to the airport so that as they're saying on the phone, they can type out the emails on the plane and they work like dogs. And they tell me about how, I get about 2 weeks with my family out of the year. That's all they get is 2 weeks. And so, that has been a big thing is recognizing where I was at and the fact that I actually did have a lot of these old thoughts and a lot of these old beliefs like everybody else that I had to get rid of and basically exercise those ghosts out of my mind to be able to. Really amazing with being a real estate investor. Driving a car, telling people I'm doing that. For the first couple of years, they all looked at me and were like, "Oh yeah, really? Oh, that's great." And it wasn't until I have done some deals now and I've flipped some properties that people see the proof is in the pudding now. And now I have some of these people coming to me that I know are going to be my investors, and I'm going to be able to sell houses to here in the future. It'll be a good pool to dip into. But there's part of us, I guess, we're all from the state of Missouri in America, of how people don't believe it until they see it.
Yeah.
So, but the way the world works is actually opposite. You're not going to see it until you believe it that you can do it.
Man, that's so 100% right. And to talk about the corporate world, I finished college in 2008, and my undergrad was in accounting, and so I was going to do the CPA thing, and I was doing that because I really didn't have enough belief that I could do the investing side. I'd never bought and sold a house. I'd been a real estate agent for 4 or 5 years at that point, but it was just like I got into accounting for about 30 days, and it was just like I cannot do this. It's just like literally, I think I lasted 33 days because I got my first paycheck and I worked like a half a week after that. And I was just like, I cannot do this. The partner at the firm, he yelled at me and he's like this short guy. I'm not like against short people, but he like wanted to let everyone know he wasn't short, And it's just like, man, I did not go to school for 4 years for this. And then I got my first check, which was roughly about a third of what I was used to when I was selling real estate, because I was running a model home and we were selling new construction. Just like, man, this is just not it. It's like I did not bust my ass for this, man, like at all. And luckily, my fiance at the time, we were getting married in 3 months, and she said, well, just quit. I was like, you don't understand. Like, it's terrible real estate market. Everything's bad. She's like, you'll figure it out. Just quit. And it was the second best decision I've ever made. The first one was marrying her. The second one was quitting accounting and doing this, because it's like, look, so to talk about that, last week I was in Seaside, Florida. And so it was my wife's 33rd birthday. And every week we try to go to somewhere. Usually it's the panhandle of Florida. And the weather was perfect. And I actually caught a sinus infection while I was down there. But we were at the end of our stay. And I was like, I think I want to stay another day. So just like book another day, because I don't have a boss that I have to go to and say, right, like, please, sir or ma'am, can I please have this extra day? It's like, well, not for me. So what do you think is the plans on the marketing side to scale the business? So you're doing a little bit more direct mail. Do you have anything kind of in the works? Are you going to try some cold calling? Are you going to do any ringless voicemail? Or what's the plans for the next year?
I think that's exactly it. Is you hit it right there. I need to go after these existing leads I have a bit more aggressively, meaning just putting more touches upon them. And so I think I'm gonna do exactly that, which is to skip trace, basically get phone numbers for these people and start calling them. And I also want to employ expanding my direct mail with what you had suggested to me, which is also going after the mortgage lates. The 30, 60, and 90-day mortgage lates. And, I still have a bit of a desire to implement going after some of these pretty homes, quote unquote, if you will, people who aren't in trouble. But I really think it's going to take for the market to slip for it to make it attractive for those people to come to me. Because otherwise they're just a bit too hesitant. They're still just people can get the prices that they want, and so the people that are panicking right now are only the ones that have a house worth over $500,000 in this town, which is quite a bit. There's a lot of people, but there's just not a market of enough buyers to buy those homes, and so you really have to find the super couple each earning a good wage, a good jobs to be able to afford those houses. And so that is still a little bit up in the air. That's something I have to work on. I've been watching you guys in the group and seeing what other people are talking about yellow letters and what's working and what's not. And it does seem, I've heard you use the phrase, who stole the cheese type of moments with people are doing different things. And So I'm not really in any rush to dive into anything new. Although I do see that I need to up my efforts somewhere, because I'm getting to the point where I have time on my hands during the day that I need to be employing it towards an activity that is, I'm basically trying to recognize the Pareto, if I'm saying it correctly, rule, which is, you know, the 80-20 rule.
Right.
Concentrating on the 20% that's getting me the results and learning how to get rid of the 80 that is not.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And you'll continue to do that. So we can talk off record about the marketing that you want to do and come up with a plan for that.
Okay.
Just so that we can talk in specifics. So last question for someone that's a newer investor or they're struggling in their business, because it's not an easy business. And one of the main reasons I wanted to bring you on is, you know, like you really made the commitment to do this business in 16, but it wasn't until 18 that you really began to have that snowball effect in the business where things began to really, really work well. Yes. What advice would you give that person? So they're starting or they've been going for a while and they're struggling. What advice do you have for them to continue in the business?
Well, I think it was, you know, in the beginning of your training, you go through how it's important to recognize the energy level that you're at as you're evolving as an investor. And for me, being aware of these things beforehand makes it so much easier going through it as you're going through it. And so I would have to say that, you know, like many people do, I kind of did it the hard way on how I was focusing on all of the stuff with the real estate in terms of how do you do it and what's the paperwork and what's the procedure. And I wanted to master all these little details when I didn't realize that what I really needed to work on at the same time, if not more so, was just my mindset and how I thought during the day and how I think about myself affects my tone of voice and how I talk to the people that I'm talking to out there in the market. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody's going to believe in yourself. And so it's just like respect. If you don't have respect for yourself, you can't give it to anybody else. And so I really had to learn how to have a belief in myself.
Yes.
Which, like I said, you know, I went through it the hard way. It was, as you say in your training, you know, you get to a point where you're operating at like 60% energy level. And that's hard to keep treading water and keep your head above water when you're having those bad days. And I had some really bad days here and there. But I think the thing that really is how you got to keep your eye on the prize. And what is it that you want, and keep your whys in front of you. And the why is the most important thing. The how will take care of itself.
Yes.
And then so once you establish your whys, you can study how to do it, and you'll figure it out. You know, you will learn how to do this stuff. Mastery. And, you know, an overnight success takes 10 years if you look out there. You know, whether it's an actor, musician, you know, anybody. You hear these people who overnight success, and nobody looks at the decade of work that they put into getting there. And so I'm actually very pleased with where I'm at right now. I think that was probably one of the biggest things I had to get over was getting over the myth of the overnight success. You know, people don't get involved in this business and boom, they're a millionaire in a year, 12 months. And so it's a matter of, you know, don't believe the hype, believe in what's real. And, but you have to establish that why. Why am I doing this? And financial freedom is everything. It's everything. Going back to that book and the diamond cutter, when I create wealth in my life, I can bring wealth to everybody else's life.
Yeah.
I can spread wealth everywhere I go. And And so that's kind of the attitude I have right now. I feel like I'm becoming King Midas, except I don't think I'm going to be cursed. I think I'm going to be able to touch whatever I want and create gold everywhere. And that's what I want to do. I want to create something here that goes way beyond who I am and help a lot of people. And so this is just the beginning. It's I see the numbers I'm creating now, and I'm just getting started. I still don't know what I'm doing. Wait until I figure out what I'm doing here. It's going to be pretty cool.
Well, I'd say you know a little bit more than you don't know what you're doing. But man, I tell you, it's been so much fun to watch. It's been so much fun to watch because it's I could tell from the very beginning how committed you were. And it's like if you have the commitment, like you said, like you have the why, you have the commitment, everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah,
and so
I agree.
That's just so great. Man, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on with us. I know that people have really enjoyed this. And I would say that there's more than just a few people right now that are hearing this and we're kind of on the fence if they were going to continue to keep going. And now they've said, you know what, I've got to do this. So that's
I hope so.
All right, man. Appreciate it very much. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Brad.